Hello, everybody, and welcome to Draft League Season 2 for us on the channel. Um, Last year, we had a really awesome Draft League with maybe one of our best playoffs ever. It was really exciting. If you haven't gone and seen it, go watch it. I won't spoil it for you, but it's very exciting. And we're back with Season 2. And we have everything from the Indigo Disc is legal. Pecharunt is also legal, although no one drafted it. But yeah, and we're working with a Terra Captain system, which I think I explained in a previous video. But I wanted to take this time to just kind of go through everybody's team. It's been finalized. I have my first battle actually in a little bit after recording this, so that's really exciting. But I want to go through one by one. Not everybody has a team name yet, so hopefully we'll get that kind of sorted out before the first videos go up. But you can expect the first week of battles to be uploaded on Friday next week. And then every week beyond that, you'll get battles up until playoffs. And then usually we take about a week break. And then we come back, and then that should be wrap it up with that. So usually our playoffs are the top 4 teams move on. And then it's just kind of single elimination from there. But there's only 8 of us in the draft league, so it's just round robin. Everybody battles each other. Cool. So, the way we did our draft is we did it by tiers. We made our own tiers. We didn't use Smogon ones because we felt that Smogons were a little weird and wacky this year. So this year, I should say, this generation. Things are a little more out of whack than they usually are. So, we made our own. Not everything is perfect, but that's okay. So, I want to take a look at our first team here. Which is Brandon's team. Last year, you might have known him as Six Piece was the name of his team, where he piloted Gholdengo and Low Kicks to a pretty powerful position in that draft league. But this year, we are looking at maybe one of the most relatively balanced team compositions out of everybody in the draft. Lots of utility and lots of damage to go around for sure. So we'll start with his S tier, which is Gliscor. And, you know, what needs to be said about Gliscor? This Pokemon pretty much does everything. It can be defensive, it can be offensive, it can have utility, it can pivot, you know, it's everything. Its coverage is insane. Moving down, we have Ogerpon Wellspring specifically. We did break up the Ogerpons into the specific masks. Just so everybody knows. So, you know, he can only use the Wellspring form. So you know which mask he's holding, you know his item, but he has to use the water one. And, you know, Ogerpon's a new one from the Teal Mask, so this is a completely new Pokemon for our league. Last year, we only had pretty much what was in base Scarlet and Violet, plus, I think, 1 or 2 of the like raid battle Pokemon were able to get put in there, like Cinderace and maybe Greninja. I don't even remember. Next, we have another new Pokemon because we didn't have the home update at the time, which is Arcanine Hisui, which is I'm jealous because I love Arcanine in general, and I love Hisui and Arcanine too. So this was definitely an awesome pickup. He originally had Kleavor. If you watch our draft live stream, he originally had Kleavor, but then he was like, "Man, I really need a fire type," and he was able to still kind of cover having Rock still and the damage, so pretty much can do everything Kleavor can do minus, Stone Axe. So I think it's an awesome pickup. Moving on to his B tier is where you see the defense really come together. We have Alomomola Blissey as this crazy defensive core he's got. Regenerator, Pivot, Flip Turn, Alomomola. If you've been paying attention to Gen 9 kind of OU stuff, Alomomola's been making waves like crazy. It's been doing really good. It's just really solid right now. Blissey hasn't been as solid this gen, but you know, it's still really bulky. It still gets a lot of good utility stuff, setting up rocks, throwing out thunder waves, just kind of, you know, walling stuff out. Seismic toss is never a bad idea. And I believe he can use, Blissey gets Wish, right? Totally. Has to, right? Yeah. Next up is Hitmontop. Hitmontop definitely is kind of like Gliscor in the sense that you can go defensive, you can do an Intimidate build, clear hazards away, or you could go more offensive with like Technician and use like Bullet Punch and Mach Punch and Triple Axle and that kind of stuff. Both are totally valid options, so definitely Hitmontop's going to be mixing it up every week for sure. Moving on to his C tiers and below. So our rules with Terra Captains is that you had to pick 3 from among your C and D tier picks, and then you had to pick 3 types for them to Terra into. So you can see his Terra Captains on the right, and that's generally the rule. That just is the rule for every team in the league. So this was kind of our way to make our kind of weaker Pokemon feel a little bit more stronger and feel a little bit more prevalent. We've seen, if you watch other draft leagues, you'll see people do it with like, oh, if they're worth this amount of points, you can pick that as one of your Terra Captains. And same dealio, they can pick a certain amount of types or what. But yeah, so they get 3 types, and it's pretty cool. We have Terra Stellar is in. It's exciting because I think there's a couple Pokemon that can really make good use of it, but I actually really enjoy the way Terra Stellar is designed. I think it's really cool, and it's definitely was not what I was expecting. I was expecting that stuff to be crazy. Anyway, detours aside, his C tiers, we have Indeedee. I believe we just allowed him to go whichever Indeedee he wants. I'm not super familiar with the Pokemon outside of VGC. I just know in VGC everyone picks the female one because it's better, I guess. I don't really know differences. But we didn't really care. So he gets to use whichever Indeedee he wants. He picked the male one for the little pictures here, which is cool. Next up is Noivern. Noivern's definitely a Pokemon that is like, yeah, as a Terra Captain, I can see this thing doing some work. He picked Fairy, Fire, and Steel. A lot of them end up being Fairy and Steel, but those are 2 of the best Terra types you can turn into, so no surprises there. Definitely can set up Tailwind. It can pivot. It has some Dragon type privileges, so you can kind of pick a lot of different special moves that it can work with. And obviously it's super fast. Definitely one of the cool Gen 6 Pokemon. Next up is Glaceon, which Glaceon is actually a winner of Sword and Shield Season 2 draft of ours. So that's pretty cool that he has this one picked up. This one also one of his Terra Captains, Fairy, Steel, and Electric. So kind of going for that little bit of Bolt Beam coverage, which is pretty cool. Glaceon can hit really hard, and being able to use that as one of your Terra Captains and actually kind of be able to turn those really bulky defensive stats into a type that would appreciate that more than Ice is rad. And still being able to have Ice stab. So that's really cool. I love to see it. Heading into D tier, we have some kind of classic Pokemon that Brandon here enjoys. Berserker, a little kind of gremlin freak. This was actually originally one of his Terra Captains, but we allowed people to kind of switch around who were their Terra Captains before a certain point, and then what types, and now we're locked in. So Berserker definitely hits pretty hard. One of the few Pokemon, I think one of like 2 Pokemon that gets Tough Claws that isn't a Mega Evolution. Fake Out, Iron Head. I think he might, Steely Spirit's also a thing, but I think that's more of a doubles thing, but he might do it. I believe it also gets U-turn and, gets access to some other things, but mostly it's just like a wall breaker. But that's cool, and that kind of, I think, let's see. He has a Steel and a Fairy and a Dragon, so they're kind of his lower tiers, but it works, and all of his other things turn into Steel or Fairy. So moving on, we have Malamar, the final Terra Captain, which is Fairy Terra, Steel Terra as usual, which is good because that way you can kind of resist Bug, and then Terra Stellar, so you can click Superpower and Stellar Terra Blast and get the power-ups, which is really, really rad. I like it a lot, The only risk with the Terra Stellar is that you still have to remain Psychic Dark, basically, which, it is what it is. And finally, we have a Goblin for the guy who loves goblins. It is Morgrem. It's going to be Eviolite Morgrem. It's going to be pretty cool being able to set up screens like that and being able to Parting Shot out. Maybe one of his favorite moves is Parting Shot, like, completely. He loves Morgrem a lot, so... Cool. So that's going to cover up Brandon's team. Like I said, I think this is one of the most balanced teams in the draft league so far. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. And now next up we have Mitch. So we've transitioned to 3D sprites and some colors here. So Mitch doesn't have a team name yet. He was the Outsiders last season. He's coming into this next season with a pretty strong team, I would say. We have Dragapult as his S tier. I believe so. Mitch went after everybody else, so nobody had any specific interest in Dragapult, but that's okay. We're kind of like we're more so passion players, more so than trying to pick the best things ever. So there's a lot of it. We want to just like pick the things we want to use. So, which is totally cool. It's a very casual draft league for people watching. So Dragapult is definitely one of the strong picks. Very, very good. I think anybody who really goes hard in the draft league knows that Dragapult is definitely one of the best Pokemon you can pick on your first round. Especially that in like Iron Valiant nowadays. So, pretty good, pretty good. I mean, what else needs to be said? This thing outspeeds almost everything except like Electrode. So really rad. You get to see it either be physical or special. He'll make it up as he goes along. Next up is Empoleon with a brand new ability in competitive. They took away the Defiant. They gave it something that makes a little more sense. So switching that in on the couple of Intimidators that we have around in this draft league is going to be super cool. As Vacuum Wave, it's a really good time to be an Empoleon fan. Water Steel, being the only Water Steel type, is super cool. And I could go on. And then he picked up another starter in the form of Cinderace with Libero Cinderace. This is definitely a really cool one because I think Cinderace is probably the best of the Protean / Libero users at this point, since he is monotype. He can kind of click Pyro Balls if he needs to, and he won't proc his once per switch in type change until he uses something that's not fire type, which is pretty cool. Meowscarada and Greninja don't get that privilege because they're dual type. It makes them switch to a monotype. So even if they pick a water or dark move or a grass move, so which is pretty cool. I really like that advantage of Cinderace. So definitely a good pickup. I don't think Cinderace has ever disappointed anybody that has drafted it. Next up is one of my favorite Pokemon from his B tier, which is Dragalge. Dragalge is definitely my favorite poison type like ever. It's so cool. I love it so much. I've drafted it twice, and each time it's a beast. I love it so much. Just go watch other battles. Even Jack drafted it last season, and it was doing work there too. I absolutely love it. Poison Dragon's such a cool typing. It's so bulky. It gets Flip Turn now, so it can kind of pivot on out. It gets a lot of coverage and Thunderbolt and Ice and even I think Water and Poison and Dragon, obviously, and Electric. If I didn't say that already. Next up is the Electivire, who newly got buffed. He's got some new punching moves with his new punching glove, and he's got Bulk Up and the new Supercell Slam. He just has to be careful clicking that on a ground type because he will get owned. But it is definitely a good time to be Electivire right now. Being physical electric has never looked more promising, I would say, with Supercell Slam in the mix. So really exciting to see what Electivire can pull off. Next up is to finish off his starter trio is Decidueye Hisuian. So another one of those new Legends Arceus Pokemon. Grass and Fighting type, which is pretty cool. And it gets access to the new move Triple Arrows, which is super rad. This Pokemon also gets Defog too. So it's one of the few Pokemon that gets Defog still in the mix, which is pretty cool. It does a lot of stuff. It does a lot of attacks. It holds a vest pretty well. Can pivot. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Decidueye. Hisuian Decidueye. Cool. And moving on, we are on to his first Terra Captain, Sableye, which has got the terrestrialization options of Dark, Rock, and Ghost. Rock's a little on flavor, huh? Sableye is cool. I'm kind of surprised no one has drafted Sableye up until this point. He gets, very much known for his prankster moves and being able to kind of Thunder Wave stuff or Will-O-Wisp when he needs to. I believe he can set up screens and do some other shenanigans, so exciting to see what Sableye gets up to in this draft. Next up is Masquerain, a Pokemon that didn't really get to see any action until the playoffs last season as a member of Thomas's team. And it's definitely really cool. It's got sticky webs, it's got intimidate. That's a lot of utility just on its own, and it can U-turn out, which is super rad. So it's got a lot of options for it, and I also do a little bit of decent damage. Good bug type pickup. I really like it. Frostlass is his next Terra Captain. It's got Ice, Ghost, and Fairy. So Ice and Ghost definitely helping double down on the stab types it already has access to, and then Fairy kind of being able to cover up the rest. Next up is Sandslash. This is a rad one, a nice one to be able to kind of spin away some stuff or be able to throw out some stab earthquakes. Who doesn't love Sandslash? We all wish he was a little bit better, but that's why he's in D tier. And yeah, I love it. Next up is Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is definitely a Pokemon we've all tried to make work. It's in D tier. You haven't picked the fairy yet. There's Wigglytuff. What more can I say? And finally, the last Terra Captain is Hitmonchan with Fighting, Ground, and Dark. Definitely appreciating the new Boxing Glove item to mix with his Iron Fist. And can definitely going to be throwing out quite a few moves in this draft league. Can also spin away hazards. There's nothing. Hazards are not going to be an issue for this guy. He might not even run Boots Masquerade. You might not. Cool. Moving on, we have Master Quest by Jack. This is definitely another one of those like threatening, balancy kind of teams. There's a lot of power here. Last draft, he kind of tried to go super hyper aggressive with everything, and I think he had kind of an issue with not being able to switch in properly against every Pokemon ever. But this time he's got definitely some good options, Slowking and Snorlax, but let's break it down one by one. So his S tier is Chien-Pao. No need to worry about Terra or anything with him, but it's definitely still a powerful Pokemon. Really, really good. Sword of Ruin is super strong, so definitely one of the more powerful S tier picks. Next up is Slowking, and like I was saying just a bit ago, Chilly Reception is super sweet with this guy. Definitely kind of matches into the fighting type that Chien-Pao is worried about pretty well, and can put up a Chilly Reception to give Chien-Pao a little bit of a defense buff to kind of give it some more survivability. Super cool, and can swap into Haxorus, the next A tier. Haxorus is maybe the third time Haxorus has been drafted by Jack. One of his favorite dragon types. Definitely wants to make it work. Kind of always a bridesmaid, never a bride when it comes to these drafts, but that doesn't mean it doesn't take a lot of people down with it. So pretty good pickup. Waiting to see what we can get done with that guy. Next up is Snorlax. I love this pick. I love Snorlax so much. Really bulky dude, dishes out good amount of damage, can soak in a lot of damage, huge SPDF, huge HP. Yeah, really cool. It's a classic. We'll see if he's going to run Resto Chesto or Leftovers or what, but I am excited to see good old Snorlax in one of these. Next up is Espeon. This is actually a throwback to his Sword and Shield 1 draft. Espeon was one of his Pokemon he drafted in that. That one was not televised, so you'll never find records of it, but still pretty cool to see Espeon back on the field. Definitely one of the cooler evolutions. Access to Magic Bounce, really, really sweet. Leafeon, another evolution, kind of back to a trend of double EVs. Really cool, kind of fast physical sweeper. There might be a slight being able to set up some sun and do some sun stuff here. But Leafeon's really cool. It's pretty bulky too. I think it has a really high defense stat or something like 130 or something. And it kind of gets him his grass type. So cool. Love Leafeon. Yeah. Next up is Dusclops, his first of many Eviolite users. Dusclops is really cool. Can set up Trick Room for those slower Pokemon like Slowking and Snorlax. Can dish out some Nightshades to kind of do some consistent damage, and Will-O-Wisp, and anything else he really needs him to do. And he can scout out items. Isn't that cool? Yeah. Pretty cool mono ghost type pickup. Dusclops is pretty rad. I like him a lot, so I love it. Next up is Charizard, his favorite Pokemon. And he's just rocking base Charizard. No Mega Evolutions or Gigantamax Charizard this time around. Yeah, and it is one of his Terra Captains. This is his first one. He's got Fire, Fairy, and Fighting. I think the Fighting is probably the most interesting one. He didn't pick up Flying or anything for as one of his Terra types, which is interesting. Um, and Fire, Fairy, I think is something he just always wanted. And again, Fairy is one of the better types to be able to terrestrialize into. So cool, cool, cool. Also, oh, you know what? Fighting resists Rock, and that is something pretty cool. I like it. Next up is Hisuian Sliggoo, the first of our little gooey friends. This is one that he has been really excited to use. We've done a couple battles in the past where he's used this, and it has been quite the obstacle when unprepared. So we'll see how it does in draft. I mean, Steel Dragon's a great type. Being able to be a great type with a great Eviolite onto you is definitely pretty cool. And maybe even being able to use Gooey to your advantage. And next we have his first D tier, Dunsparce. Now he drafted Dunsparce last time, but he didn't really get to be able to use it effectively. So I'm excited to see it back here again. He's been a big Dunsparce fan. He was really excited about Dunsparce. But I think he's still a bigger fan of the OG Dunsparce. So I'm excited. I hope I get to see it out in the battles. I hope I get to see all these Pokemon at least once. He's got a very colorful array here. Yeah. You know, glares, headbutts. It's basically Jirachi. It's basically Jirachi. Next up, we have Altaria. Now, Altaria has never really been a crazy powerful pick or anything like that. So I'm interested to see what made him want to pick it up here. I think this might be a real passion draft. These are all Pokemon that he just likes, which is, you know, that's what it's all about for us. So I love it. I'm excited to see what Altaria can do. I'm hoping to see some hidden tech. It is one of his Terra Captains, Fairy, Steel, and Poison. Yeah, pretty exciting. Next up is his final Terra Captain, and probably his favorite fossil Pokemon, I believe, is Rampardos. He was so excited to get this thing back in Scarlet and Violet because he wasn't able to have access to it in Sword and Shield. And now it's here, and it's a Terra Captain. He's got Electric, Ground, and Steel, which is really cool. You're going to see one of these Pokemon that's not going to be able to Terra into any of its original types. Same with Altaria. But maybe he's able to kind of get something going. I mean, he does have a bit of a Trick Room plus Rampardos thing going on, which is kind of cool. Yeah, Slowking and Dusclops can set up Trick Room. Sweet. So he can kind of switch which mode he wants to go in. He can go fast with Haxorus and Shampoo, and he can go slow with Snorlax and Rampardos. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Next team does have a name. Ooh, your eyes. This is the Iron Specters. This is Sean's team. We're looking at Sneasler is his S tier. That is a quite the chaotic Pokemon. Sneasler is definitely per se. Dire Claw's on the menu. It's totally allowed. Figuring out how to navigate something like that is definitely going to be a big obstacle for people, and especially dealing with such powerful close combats. Possibly getting put to sleep by Dire Claw and pivot potential. Sneasler's definitely a force to be reckoned with. Next up is Milotic, a very bulky water type. I like Milotic a lot. It's one of the Pokemon that won our first draft league ever in Sun and Moon. And now it's back here again. And I believe it's one of the few Pokemon that gets access to Scald still. So that's exciting. And, Recover. I believe it gets Cosmic Power. I don't know if it gets Flip Turn. It probably does, but yeah, it's kind of one of those OG bulky waters, you know? Next is Iron Jugulus. I think this might be the first Future Paradox on the table. Iron Jugulus is better than people I think it is. Dark Flying is a pretty okay type, and it gets access to a lot of coverage. I've definitely dealt with this thing on Showdown kind of stuff before, and it just being like, oh man, it really does just smash, you know? So, excited to see what goes forward with it. Definitely a good candidate for booster energy, and a good candidate for other items too. Next, we have Sinistra. Sean here is a big fan of OG Poltegeist. Poltegeist is the final one. Yeah, because they switched the names. Phew. So Sinistcha is definitely one that he was really excited about. Grass Ghost, this does make his grass type, which is pretty sweet. He loves his ghost types, and he limited himself to just 2 this time, so good for him. Good for him. This thing's super bulky, gets heat proof, so kind of almost loses one of its weaknesses inherently. And yeah, it has Matcha Gotcha, its own signature move, does a lot of healing and can burn. And that's just crazy utility on its own. Next up, we have Minior, who we very specifically put in B tier so that he wouldn't be able to terastallize. This Pokemon is an absolute menace with Shell Smash. Another kind of signature thing that Sean loves to do is click Shell Smash. Shell Smash acrobatics with this thing is insane. So we wanted to make sure that it couldn't turn into Terra Flying and do that as well. But yeah, there's not much more to say other than that for Minior. It really is just like a ticking time bomb. You just have to be ready for it. And yeah, if you're not prepared, it's going to get you. Next up is Rotom Heat. Rotom Heat definitely went the distance last draft, taking it all the way to playoff finals, where it put on quite the show. Definitely can pivot. Electric Fire is a typing pretty just unique to him. You know, Overheat is definitely going to be useful. There's a lot of people tearing to steal this draft. And, you know, he loves sitting in front of steel types. So, good stuff. Next up is his first Terra Captain, Golurk. This is a kind of a Sean classic Pokemon. He loves Golurk. It smashes. Does it get Iron Fist? It might get Iron Fist. I think it gets that. And, you know, you punch and glove, it can punch stuff, and it gets good old Poltergeist the move. Really powerful as its Terra types. It can turn into a Steel type, a Fighting type, and can kind of double down on the Ghost damage. Next up, we have another Terra Captain, which is Alolan Muck. This is also one of Sean's favorite Pokemon. Flying, Water, and Poison for its Terra types. This is definitely much more one of the more defensive ones. Good grounded Poison to soak up those Toxic Spikes. And really just good base typing of Dark Poison. So some access to kind of ignoring that ground weakness with the Flying Terra, and then being able to kind of switch to a bulky Water if he needs him to, or double down on the Poison. Now we go into his D tiers. Got ahead of myself. We have Flygon still. Flygon, kind of a discount Garchomp with the Dragon and Ground typing. We still have Dragon Dance. We have some more utility moves in the form of like Breaking Swipe. We got First Impression. This is definitely a Pokemon that, you know, it can go there, it can get there. Not a bad C tier pick at all. Next up, we have in our D tiers the last Terra Captain, which is Alcremie, Fire, Ground, and Psychic. Fairy Ground, notably really powerful stab combination. Alcremie is definitely a Pokemon that if you aren't worried about it, it might sneak up on you. It might get a Calm Mind off, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this thing might take a thing or two down with it. So you got to be careful. He might be switching up his Alcremie look every week too. And next we have Sandslash, Alola. Kind of a weird pick to be on a not snow team, but you know, if you need an ice type, you need an ice type. So definitely something that can kind of sneak by. He loves the new loaded dice item. Being able to shoot off Icicle Spears as fast as he can. Might be able to manually set up snow for him, and that would certainly be scary. And last but not least, we have Dodrio. This is kind of another one of Sean's classic favorite Pokemon. His first shiny Pokemon, Dodrio. Not great abilities, but you know what? It has decent stats, and it has a pretty good move pool. So I'm excited to see what Dodrio can pull off in this draft. Next up, we have my week 1 opponent. This is East, who went for a particular theme this draft. All Gen 5 Pokemon. So let's take a look and break it down. His S tier is Landorus Therian. Obviously a great pickup. Intimidate, Ground Flying. We already talked about how good Gliscor is. I don't really need to talk about how good Lando T is. Pivots, rocks. It can go special. It can go physical. Whatever you want. Volcarona, kind of another Pokemon, has a bit of a 4-move syndrome, but that doesn't matter when you have a Quiver Dance attached to something this powerful. It just goes bonkers. Yeah, and, you know, don't let it set up. Next up is Meloetta, maybe tiered a little bit too high, but that's, we're just figuring stuff out. So Meloetta has access to Relic Song. It can kind of switch types on you. It can kind of become like, oh, I can bring in this dark type, the only thing it's weak to, and then suddenly it becomes a fighting type and close combats you, and you're done. So you have to really be worried about Meloetta. Definitely a Pokemon that East also just really enjoys. Next is Serperior, kind of just out of range of being able to use Terra Stellar, but it still has access to Leaf Storm, it still has access to Dragon Pulse, still has access to plenty of options to shoot. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. It's been a while since we got to see Serperior, not since Gen 7, so I'm glad to see it back. Next is Cinccino. Cinccino has lots of buffs. We have Loaded Dice Technician options. We have Triple Axle. We have Tidy Up as one of the best hazard removal moves. It's a good time to be Cinccino, that's for sure. You can run Skill Link too, but honestly, with Technician out, why not just run Loaded Dice and go nuts? That is definitely one of the scariest Pokemon on his team, and we will have to figure out how to take that on soon, because my battle with him is soon. Next, we have Eelektross, one of the few Pokemon in the game that has no weaknesses due to its Levitate and Electric typing. This Pokemon can go physical, it can go special, it can pivot around, shoot flamethrowers out, it can coil, I believe it can use Supercell Slam, and can kind of has weird amount of good coverage, so cool. It's cool to see him kind of hit the board. So next up is Whimsicott, one of his first Terra captains, and I forgot to fill in the little Terra symbols. Oops. But we can just read them off. He has Steel, Ghost, and Grass as his Terra options. That's definitely something to think about, being able to turn into a Steel type and no longer be 4 times weak to poison. Being able to double down on some Grass moves, and Ghost to kind of, I guess it also resists poison, so you got that going for you. Plus, it could just be Haunted. Ooh. Very fast, sets up Prankster stuff, has a Chlorophyll mode. Whimsicott is definitely pretty good. And you being able to use priority Cotton Guard sometimes can win you a game. So, cool stuff. Next, we have Scrafty, another one of his Terra captains. Dark Fighting and Psychic as his types that he can turn into. He's not really going very defensive on this one. He is going all in just to attack with Scrafty. Just needs to get him a couple Dragon Dances or set him up with some Tailwinds from Whimsicott, and he's ready to go. His last C tier is Basculin. We didn't specify stripes, I don't think. I think we just let him kind of do whatever. He can do red, white, or blue. So, doesn't really matter to us. Cool. Basculin is way better than I think people generally think he is. Adaptability Water Stab is really good. And sometimes you just put a choice band on it and you say, click Wave Crash and see what happens. Next, we have Zebstrika. Zebstrika is loving a lot of the new Scarlet Violet stuff. This is his last Terra Captain with Electric, Water, and Flying. Supercell Slam, Trailblaze to be able to hit some some ground types. He could already hit water types, but hit some ground waters also. And Flame Charge to be able to kind of boost his speed up. And then, he can click his brand new fancy electric move and do a ton of damage. Pretty rad. I like it a lot. He's got some good abilities to synergize with Terra, so this is definitely one of the better D-tier picks that you could have picked. Next up is Leavanny. I believe gets Sticky Web, Bug, Grass. Not the best typing ever, but that doesn't mean you can't click some Leaf Blades and do what you need to do sometimes. If he gets Sticky Webs up, I believe he gets Sticky Webs. That's pretty helpful too. Cryogonal is his last Pokemon. Definitely one of the more low tier, low point rapid spinners, but definitely one that gets the job done no matter what. Gets access to Freeze Dry, really good move, and gets access to some other stuff like Mirror Coat if you want to get tricky with it. So definitely, I don't think it was one of the ones he really particularly wanted, but he said, I need a nice type, and we're in D tier. So cool. So that wraps up East Team. If you love Gen 5 and you're expecting some news on Gen 5 stuff soon, you might want to tune into East battles. Next up, we have Thomas, and Thomas's gimmick is that he actually RNG rolled all the members of his team, and then before the draft, before the first week, we all get we get to switch out one guy. He switched out his S tier. I can't even remember what he rolled, actually. But he went with Walking Wake. He just loves Walking Wake, so that's one he actually specifically picked. But he's kind of got a weird sun thing going on here, and you'll see it as we keep going down. Walking Wake obviously benefits from the sun. It is a sun sweeper, and it's a very unique one. The fact that it's water and dragon. Gets a water move that gets boosted by the sun. Hydro Steam can shoot off Draco meteors. Yeah, it's crazy, but it's rad. It's absolutely rad. Blaziken is his first A tier, very powerful Pokemon. Speed boost, Swords Dance. You know, you give it a turn, it's gonna run away with the game. Gets boosted in the sun with his fire moves. Just saying. Definitely a Pokemon to look out for. And I think it got some neat stuff in this gen, but I just can't quite remember. Might get that new fighting type move, but that's kind of a funny move. Next up we have Rotom Wash, classic Pokemon, competitive Pokemon staple from the old Gen 5, Gen 6 days. Still here, still doing what it does. Volt switching, hydro pumping. I don't think it gets defog anymore, but Will-O-Wisping, you know, it does it. It still does it. It's still here. It's still doing it. So definitely still pretty good. Next up is his Magnezone. So he's going to be able to kind of magnet pull in some of those steel types, or maybe even some of those Pokemon that terrestrialize into steel types. Might be able to catch them off guard with some stuff like that and give some body presses to finish them off. Magnezone's definitely a good pick. Next is Bonnet, another past Paradox Pokemon to benefit from Sun. Might be able to be the one that sets up Sun itself. It's a Spore user, Grass Dark, not the best type combination ever, but you know, sometimes you just need to click a really powerful Sucker Punch and get the job done. Next is Venusaur. Venusaur, obviously a really, really versatile Pokemon. It can go a little bit more on the defensive side, set out some Leech Seeds, some Toxics, set up some other stuff, but also has an incredible move pool. Turn it into a Sun Sweeper, and it's going nuts. Weather Ball, Solar Beam, Sludge Bombs, Earth Powers, you name it. Venusaur's going to click it. So, really excited to see. Yeah, I definitely see a lot of Sun potential on this team. Next is Yanmega. This is a Pokemon actually I might have even drafted too if I was looking to get a bug type. Yanmega is really rad. This is his first Terra Captain. Can Terra into Bug, Ground, or Steel. Pretty sweet speed boost again. You really have to watch your speed control with this guy because he is going to take off like a rocket. Definitely pretty cool. I'm glad to see Yanmega back. Clicking some Bug Buzzes. Clicking Psychic Noise too. That's a new move it gets. And next we're on to Donphan, his kind of premier rapid spinner. Firing off Earthquakes, it gets sturdy plus heavy duty boots. You know, you have a Pokemon that can switch into something setting up. You have that option. You also have the option to get rid of hazards. You know, Donphan's pretty good utility. Ice Shard, Play Rough, really good move pool. And obviously some Stab Earthquakes aren't going to hurt. Little Tusk. Last draft he had Great Tusk, now he has Little Tusks. Next up is Primarina, another water type for him. I don't think it was one he was particularly truly looking for, but it's what he rolled. But it is his first fairy type, so he's got to look out for that. Primarina gets some pretty good options with Moonblast, Psychic Noise, and gets some ice coverage in the form of like Ice Beam and Icy Wind. So not a bad Pokemon at all in C tier. Maybe it could have been higher, but you know, we're going to see what happens. Next up is D tier. This is one of his favorite Pokemon. He got Tropius. He was able to roll it. Really excited. This is one of his Terra Captains. He's doing the Terra Steel Random Battle Tropius. He's got Flying Terra too, and he's got Fairy Terra. So he's kind of just like, this is going to be one of my Terra Captains. I'm going to pick the best options for it, and we're going to see how well we can get with Tropius. He absolutely loves it, adores it. Banana mode time. Next is his final Terra Captain, Araquanid. Terra Fairy, Terra Poison, Terra Normal, which is probably the most interesting Terra spread I've seen on any of the Terra Captains. No Terra Water to not just like go crazy with Water Bubble. But he can always switch that out later if he needs to in a mid-season trade. But it's definitely interesting. I'm excited to see what the Terra Normal is all about. I haven't really looked too much into Araquanid, but I do think that Pokemon is super rad. Finally, he gets Bastiodon as his last Pokemon. Bastiodon is actually kind of cooking a little bit this gen. He's got Body Press. He's got some other options, you know, Rocks, Iron Head, all that kind of jazz, what he usually does. But Body Press has definitely been a move he's been looking forward to for a while. And he's finally here. So, very exciting to see how that team works out. Now, next is the actual Sun team of the draft. This is the big guys, piloted by Ethan. His S tier Roaring Moon, one of the most powerful pass paradoxes. You've seen this thing in draft. It can do a lot. It just gets so many different moves. It gets so many different options. You really have to look out for it. No need for booster energy. It can just run whatever you need it to run. Choice Band, Scarf, Dice, Expert Belt, Life Orb, you name it. It's doing it. It's got one mode, and it's called Kill. Ninetales is going to be his first A tier. So he opted to go with Ninetales over Torkoal. I think he just thought it was a little more interesting. We did put a lot of the weather setters up higher tier, since they kind of are more like, if you're going to build a weather team, you could get all these powerful S, A, and Bs, and then be like, and then for my C tier, I'll get Polito. We didn't want to do that. So if you were going to go for something powerful like that to enable the team, want to make sure that it was a higher tier. Ninetales is definitely pretty rad. It gets Solar Beam, Flamethrower, powers itself up with its own Drought. And I think it gets some other new stuff from Gen 9. I'm excited to see. I really like the Ninetales pick a lot. Next up is Screamtail. This is a Pokemon he's actually been pretty high on. It's one of the ones he likes the most from Gen 9, so I like to see people picking the ones they like. Screamtail is super bulky. If you've ever fought it on Showdown stuff, every once in a while you just run into Screamtail and you're just like, man, this thing took like 20 moves to knock out. So definitely one of the more bulky Pokemon. Definitely a really good support Pokemon. It sets up screens, it sets up wishes, it sets up encores. It does a lot. It really does do a lot. And will also get boosted by Photosynthesis for some more sun stuff. Next up is a surprisingly water type. It's Tentacruel, probably his rapid spinner of choice. A really nice Pokemon to pair with Roaring Moon, because you can switch this in on some fairy types and then be able to flip turn out once the fairy type tries to pivot. I like it a lot. It's a really good pickup to go alongside Roaring Moon, for sure. Next is Hawlucha. Now, Hawlucha is a Pokemon who's just raring to go. Clicking close combat, procking his white herb, unburdens here, acrobatics time. Hawlucha, super cool Pokemon, very strong, can definitely just win games. If a game goes on long enough, Hawlucha will clean it up real good. Next is Galarian Articuno, another flying type of his. This one is definitely one that is a scary one to look out for. It might be tiered a little too low. Might be. Competitive is a really good ability, be able to kind of threaten out, intimidate Pokemon from not being able to do what they want to do, or making a hard read to kind of get what you want out of it. Freezing Glare is a funny move. I'd like to see it do the thing. I think I said I'd give him like $5 if he froze somebody with Freezing Glare. I'll do that. I will do that. Yeah, it doesn't get too much coverage, but honestly, it can click Calm Mind, it can click Tailwind, and it can start clicking Psychic and Flying moves, and that's pretty good. Next up is Squawkabilly, C tier. Not one of his Terra Captains, but does get some options and Intimidate, Parting Shot, can pivot around. I don't know if it gets Defog, but, sometimes you just need to be like, I need to get that guy lower in stats, and then I can handle him. You know what? That's what Squawkabilly's here to do. I believe we did give him access to any Squawkabilly color he wants. I think he just said he's probably just going to use the yellow one. I don't know. I know they get different abilities, but whatever. Next up is the good old bundle of hot dogs. It's Wugtrio. This is another one of his water types this gen. This is his first Terra Captain. Water, Dark, and Normal. I believe he just kind of went off what stabs certain Pokemon can get. Because I know Dugtrio gets a lot of dark moves, and I assume he gets a lot of normal type moves. So that's pretty exciting. I do like seeing Wugtrio hit the field, and I'm excited to see what he gets up to with it. Next up is Dusclops' bigger, better, stronger guy. It's Dusknoir. Actually, I know I said better, but it's up for debate. Dusknoir got Poltergeist. He's got some punching glove action this gen. He can definitely use those big fists to his advantage. Once again, just like Dusclops, can frisk stuff out. He's kind of just like Dusclops, but a little bit more aggressive. So I'm excited to see what he does. A lot of mono ghosts this draft. I've been noticing a lot of mono ghosts. Next up is his other Terra Captain, Sunflora. This is his Chlorophyll Sweeper. He's coming in. He's going to click Terra Grass and he's clicking Solar Beam, or he's clicking Terra Fire and he's clicking Terra Fire Blast. Yeah, it doesn't get Flamethrower. Or he's clicking Terra Ground, he's clicking Earth Power. It's exciting. Everyone loves Sunflora, right? Right? Yeah. Sunflora's here. Exciting. Next was Electrode, one of the fastest Pokemon ever to do it. Can outspeed Dragapult, notably. Pretty good Pokemon to kind of be able to throw some disruption in the enemy team. It's not going to do the craziest, highest amount of damage ever, but it can throw out a Choice Specs Volt Switch that will do a bit more than people are expecting, or might be able to throw out some Thunder Waves or even a Foul Play or two. So really cool. I love Electrode. I'm glad to see him kind of get put in. And the final Terra Captain for his team, Stantler, being able to hold an Eviolite this gen. It can Terra into Ground, Psychic, or Normal, so double down on some normal stuff. Turn into a Psychic type and be able to utilize some of those moves like Psy, Shield, Bash. And then Terra Ground to, sometimes you just got to click Earthquake. You just got to do it. So, really exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this team does. Yeah. And last but not least, before I lose my voice, it's my team. This is the Best Pals Club. This is my draft this year. Based it on some stuff that Beth really likes, and then it kind of patched it up with some stuff I like. So we'll start with our S tier is Goodra. Beth's favorite Pokemon is Goomy, but we kind of, we didn't necessarily agree, but I very hardly pushed that I cannot draft Goomy if I want to win. So I drafted Goodra as a good middle ground. Goodra's here. Goodra's got a lot of good new moves. Toxic, Knockoff, Scald. It's really exciting time to be Goodra. I can do so many different options with it. I can go special wall, basically. I can go physical. I can go special tank. It's awesome. Goodra's really flexible. And you know what? Flexible Pokemon win drafts is what I have definitely learned over these years. So I'm excited. We actually have a second dragon type, which is Hydrapple. I'm really excited to use this Pokemon as my grass type. I really wanted a high, stronger grass type this draft. And I'm really excited to use him. He's super cool. Fickle Beam is really funny. He gets a lot of good moves like Earth Power and Hydro Pump. He's kind of more so along really bulky, but I can also just kind of randomly just be like, bam, here's a bunch of damage. A lot of good Assault Vest Pokemon. Anybody who knows me knows Assault Vest is my favorite held item. So, yeah, I'm really excited to use Hydrapple. He just looks super cool. Next up is one of Beth's favorite ghost. I think it's her favorite ghost type is Basculegion. So this is kind of like I have a weird pseudo-y rain thing I can kind of do with Basculegion, and then some other Pokemon like Goodra gets hydration, and so does Dugong. So there's a couple little things like that I can set up. I don't have like a hard like Pelipper or a Politoed or anything like that, but I can always manually set it up. But it is cool. I'm excited to use Basculegion. Sometimes it's just like with a normal Basculin. Sometimes you just gotta send in Choice Band, Wave Crash, and just see what happens. Next up is Clodsire. This is actually a Pokemon I wanted to get last draft as my ground type. I ended up getting Mudsdale, but I cannot complain because Mudsdale really worked out last time. But I'm really excited to use Clodsire this time. Unaware is such an amazingly useful ability. Somebody clicks Swords Dance on you, you got an Unaware Pokemon. Clodsire is very bulky on the special side, not as bulky on the physical side, kind of like an opposite of Quagsire, but he still is able to get the job done. Yeah, and, grounded poison type, I can poison stuff, I can Earthquake comfortably. It's a good time. Next is my B tier, Mousehold. I really needed, Beth really wanted us to have more Gen 9 Pokemon, and I needed something that could clear hazards, and I was running out of Pokemon that could do that the farther I went down. So I want to pick up the OG Tidy Up crew. I'm really excited to use Mousehold. I want to click Population Bomb, I want to click Super Fang on stuff, and, do some cool normal type shenanigans. I didn't get to have a normal type last draft, and I'm excited to have a really powerful one this draft. We have to watch out for Rocky Helmets for sure, though. Next is Tinkaton. This was also a Pokemon I tried to get last draft, but it ended up working out. I think Mitch took it from me. But it's here now. This is one of Beth's favorite Gen 9 Pokemon. Fairy Steel, really good. We've got a Dragon, we've got a Fairy, and it's also a Steel type. But we have another Pokemon that can tear into some stuff. So, excited to do it. Tinkaton's really good. In general, I think Gigaton Hammer's really powerful. Knockoff Skitter Smack for some utility. Can set up rocks, can Thunder Wave, can Swords Dance. Lots of stuff. Fake Out. I think it learns Encore also. Encore is really, really good. It's a really good move. Definitely can catch some people off guard. Cool. Next, onto my C tier is Phalanx. This was a Pokemon I really specifically wanted to draft. It was the first time I really kind of was like, oh, this is the fighting type I really, really want. Phalanx, I think, is really cool. It's a really cute Pokemon. It's really fun looking. I picked as one of my Terra Captains to kind of go hard into the fighting type. I got Bug to kind of utilize that Mega Horn and First Impression. And I picked Terra Stellar just because I was like, you know what? He gets quite a few different moves, and I kind of want to use all of them. So I'm excited to get going with that. I'm really excited to use Phalanx. So hopefully we'll see it in the weeks to come. Next is another Pokemon. We kind of agreed we needed a fire type and we needed a dark type at the point we were at. And Houndoom was a Pokemon me and Beth both liked. So we picked Houndoom. Houndoom we picked as one of our Terra Captains as well. Fire, dark, just to kind of double down. He doesn't get too much in coverage, so I just kind of picked grass to kind of cover up any weaknesses from ground and water to Houndoom, so I think that will come in useful. You know, we're going to collect Trailblaze, I promise. But Houndoom's really cool. He gets some good utility moves. He gets some really good damage moves. And, you know, we have a lot of opponents who want to use Sun, so maybe we can turn that around on them. Next is a Kilowattrel. I wasn't super big, but we needed an electric and we needed a flying on what we needed left. And I said, you know what? Beth was like, this one looks good. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So Kilowattrel's here. Volt Switch, Air Slashing, Tailwinding. You know, also gets competitive. So, you know, I was talking good stuff on competitive earlier. So we're going to see how well that works out for us this season. Not one of my Terra Captains, because obviously I had to save it for the guy. You'll see it coming up. You see it on the right side of the screen. Next is Knacklestack. This was a Pokemon that was taken from me last draft by Brandon. I really wanted to use Knacklestack. I wanted to use Garganacl, but it's hard to kind of justify it because we have it in S tier because just how good it is. So I'm taking Knacklestack. We still get Salt Cure. We still get Purifying Salt. But we have to rock with Eviolite. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm excited to use it. We have a rock type. And yeah, I'm hoping to see which battles I'm going to be able to bring Knacklestack to do some stuff. Next, we have Girafarig. Girafarig is a Pokemon. We kind of wanted to go with Farigiraf, but we were like, no, our B tiers are too important with what we have there. Let's do something else. So we're taking Girafarig. I love Girafarig a lot. I was able to get a shiny one. That's why we put a little shiny sprite there. And, you know, I'm looking to see what we can do with it. I think we're going to click some trick rooms maybe sometimes. We're going to see if we can do some weird baton passy stuff maybe. It's pretty versatile. It doesn't have the best stats, but it kind of makes up for it by having a really deep move pool. And finally, last but not least, Dewgong is back, baby. Dewgong is here. He's our final Terra Captain. I picked Water to kind of double down on the water stuff. I didn't want to double pick Ice. Fairy and Steel seemed good. I think I was kind of hesitant on doing Steel at first. I was thinking about something else, but I'm glad I did pick it because that way we can kind of engage like a Steel Fairy Dragon kind of core. Thick Fat is definitely super important to the team, being able to kind of protect Clodsire, Goodra, and Hydrapple. And we also have some other Pokemon that can resist ice as well. But yeah, definitely, I'm like, you know, I'd say I built the team around Dewgong or anything, but Dewgong is not useless. It's one of my favorite Pokemon ever. I love him so much. He's such a goofy friend. And he got a lot of new moves, so hopefully we'll get to see him use some moves in just a bit because I have a battle coming up soon. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I hope you're excited for the draft. You know, shout out who your favorite team is, who you're looking forward to see playing. Week 1 is just a week away. So stay tuned. Thank you guys so much. Take care. Bye-bye.